Don't you dare touch me with those grimy hands. My body turned to stone. I, Alina Vance, stood there clutching a silver tray, the weight of 100 judgmental stares pressing down on me. The laughter that followed wasn't just loud. It was vicious, a pack of hyenas circling their prey. The person who just screamed at me like I was contagious. My little sister, Chloe. This was her 22nd birthday party, a lavish affair at the Glass Rose, the most exclusive restaurant in Portland. To every guest in that room, I was just a nameless waitress who'd made the fatal error of approaching a VIP. I saw my manager, Derek, emerge from the crowd, his face a mask of cold fury. He jerked his head toward the back. "My office, now!" I couldn't move. My feet were nailed to the floor. How did 10 years of love and sacrifice lead to this single, soul-crushing moment of humiliation? Crystal flutes clinked around me, a soundtrack of wealth and carelessness. The scent of expensive perfume and seared filet mignon hung in the air, thick and suffocating. My polyester uniform felt like a brand, marking me as other in this world of silk and cashmere. Chloe had already dismissed me, flipping her long, dark hair over her shoulder and leaning into a friend, whispering something that triggered another wave of giggles. One of them, a guy in a designer blazer, was holding up his phone, filming the whole scene with a smirk. I finally stumbled toward the back, my vision blurring. A coworker, Maria, silently took the heavy tray from my shaking hands, her eyes full of a pity that cut deeper than any insult. 10 years. I was 18 when our parents' small plane went down over the Cascade Mountains. My brother, Chris, was 23 and already living in New York, building his finance career. But Chloe was only 12. I was the one who held her at the memorial service. I was the one who dropped my scholarship to community college, my dream of becoming a paramedic, to take a full-time job at a diner. Chris sent money when he remembered, but the day-to-day, the school plays, the science projects, the teenage heartbreak, that was all on me. I told myself it was temporary, just until she was on her feet. I lived in a studio apartment so small the bed touched the kitchen counter. I ate leftover pancakes from the diner. But every month I made sure Chloe had money for her clothes, her phone, her weekend trips with friends. One day, she'd promise on the phone, her voice small and sweet, "I'm going to be a famous designer and buy you a house. You'll never have to work again." I clung to those words. I believed them with a ferocity that kept me going through double shifts and aching feet. I was so busy building her future, I forgot I had one of my own. The Glass Rose was a palace of chrome and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Willamette River. The clientele were tech entrepreneurs, trust fund kids, and social media influencers who thought nothing of spending a month of my rent on a single bottle of wine. The tips were good, but the psychological toll was brutal. You learned to be invisible, to serve with a smile while being treated like furniture. That night, the VIP lounge was decked out in gold and white for a private party. The guests were young, beautiful, and radiating an effortless sense of belonging that I'd never known. I was weaving through them with a tray of champagne flutes when I saw her. Chloe, but not the Chloe I remembered. This was a curated version. She wore a shimmering emerald green dress that probably cost more than my car. Her hair was perfectly styled, her makeup flawless. She looked like she'd stepped out of a magazine. She looked like a stranger. My heart hammered against my ribs. I set the tray down on a service station, my hands trembling. I hadn't seen her in over 2 years. She'd stopped answering my calls, my texts. Chris said she was finding herself. I now understood what that meant. It meant erasing me. "Chloe!" My voice was a whisper, swallowed by the music. I stepped closer, a desperate, hopeful smile on my face. "Chloe, it's me, it's Alina." She turned. For a split second, pure, unadulterated terror flashed in her eyes. Then it was replaced by something far worse, disgust. "Oh my God, what are you doing?" she hissed, stepping back as if I were a biohazard. "Get away from me." Her voice cut through the music like a knife, and the party froze. A girl with a sleek blonde bob gasped. "Chloe, do you know this waitress?" The guy with the phone stepped closer, zooming in. "Security." Chloe shrieked, pointing at me with a trembling finger, her performance worthy of an Oscar. "Someone get this crazy woman out of here. She just lunged at me." I stood there, my arms hanging uselessly at my sides, completely paralyzed. I wasn't just humiliated, I was annihilated. Derek was suddenly there, his grip on my elbow firm and unforgiving. "Alina, we need to talk. Now." As he led me away, I heard Chloe's loud, theatrical whisper to her friends, "I have no idea who that is. Some people are just unhinged." The laughter that followed was a physical blow. Derek's office was a small, sterile box. He didn't ask me to sit. "What the hell was that, Alina? You accosted a guest, a very wealthy, very connected guest." "She's my sister," I said, my voice hollow. "I raised her." He let out a sharp, incredulous laugh. "Your sister, that's your excuse, that's your story." "It's the truth. Our parents died. I gave up everything for her." For a moment, something flickered in his eyes, uncertainty, maybe even pity. But it was gone as quickly as it came. He shook his head. "I don't care if she's the ghost of Christmas past. You broke the cardinal rule. You made a scene. You embarrassed the restaurant." He demoted me on the spot. No more high-end evening shifts. I was moved to the weekday lunch crowd, a shift known for low bills and even lower tips. "One more mistake and you're done," he warned, dismissing me with a wave. I walked back into the restaurant in a daze. The party was still going strong. I saw Chloe through the archway, laughing with her friends, taking a sip of champagne, her life utterly undisturbed by the wreckage she'd just caused. My coworkers avoided me. In the break room, I heard the whispers. "Did you hear? She totally lost it. Apparently she's been having a hard time, but still." Only Maria came to find me. "That was really your sister, wasn't it?" I just nodded, tears finally spilling over. "Alina," she said softly, "if she can do that to you, she's not your sister anymore. She's just a monster wearing her face." That night in my cramped apartment, I sat in the dark and stared at the wall. 10 years. 10 years of my life poured down the drain of someone else's vanity. And the worst part, a tiny, broken part of me still blamed myself. I didn't seek out news of Chloe. It found me. A few weeks later, a mutual acquaintance from high school sent me a shocked text. "OMG, is your sister okay?" Attached was a link to a private Instagram story that had been screenshotted and shared. It showed Chloe's expensive downtown loft, but instead of a party, there was an eviction notice taped to the door. The story behind it all trickled out slowly. The video that guy, Jard, filmed at the party, it started circulating in their private group chats. At first, Chloe was a hero, the victim of a crazy waitress. But then someone remembered I'd called her by name. "Wait, she knew your name." And she looked devastated. "Are you sure you don't know her?" The questions started, then the digging. It turned out Chloe's entire life was a Ponzi scheme built on my paychecks. She told everyone she was a trust fund kid, that her parents had left her a fortune. The designer clothes, the expensive rent, the lavish brunches she hosted, all of it was funded by the money I'd sent, maxed out credit cards she'd taken out in a panic, and small loans from friends she never intended to pay back. When the first rent check bounced, the facade crumbled. Her friends, the ones who'd laughed at me, were the first to turn their backs. They didn't want to be associated with someone who was, in their words, such a fake. Her landlord gave her 7 days to vacate. Jard dumped her via a one-line text. "This is too messy." She was alone, broke, and utterly friendless in a city that worshipped success and despised failure. She had exactly one person left in the world. The knock came on a rainy Thursday night. I opened the door to my tiny studio, and there she was. Chloe, shivering in a thin jacket, 2 cheap suitcases at her feet. Her designer heels were scuffed, her hair was lank and unwashed, and her eyes were swollen from crying. She looked like a ghost of the glamorous woman from the restaurant. We stared at each other for an eternity. "Alina," she croaked, her voice cracking. I have nowhere else to go." Every cell in my body screamed at me to slam the door, to give her back a fraction of the pain she'd given me. But then, unbidden, a memory surfaced. Her little hand clutching mine at our parents' memorial service. I sighed, a sound that came from somewhere deep and exhausted. "Get inside, but we're not pretending this didn't happen." She looked around my cramped, shabby apartment with wide, horrified eyes. This was the life I'd been living while she was building her empire of lies. She sat on the edge of my lumpy sofa, her hands twisting in her lap. "I'm so sorry, Alina, I'm so sorry." "For what exactly?" I asked, my voice calm and cold. "For screaming at me, for calling me crazy, for pretending I didn't exist." She flinched with every question. "For all of it, I was a monster." "Why?" The question exploded out of me. "Why would you do that, after everything I did for you?" The tears started streaming down her face. "Because I was terrified. I'd built this whole world on a lie. I told them we were rich, that I came from old money. If they found out my sister was a waitress, if they knew the truth about where I came from, they would have dropped me so fast. I thought I could just become that person. I thought the lie was better than the truth. The truth, I said, my voice shaking with anger, is that I gave up my dream of being a paramedic so you could have a dream at all. I worked double shifts while you were in high school so you could have the right clothes. I sent you money so you could go on trips with your friends. And you were ashamed of me. You were ashamed of the hands that fed you. I know, she sobbed. I know, and I hate myself for it. I was so wrong, Alina. I was ashamed of the only person who ever really loved me. That night she slept on my couch using a thin, worn-out blanket. I heard her crying for hours, but I didn't go to her. The healing, if it was even possible, couldn't start with comfort. It had to start with consequences. The next morning I woke her up at 5:30 a.m. Get up. We're going job hunting. She looked at me bleary-eyed. What now? You think you're going to stay here for free? I tossed her a pair of my jeans and a plain t-shirt. You're going to work. You're going to learn what it costs to live. You're going to learn what my life has been like for the past 10 years. We spent the entire day walking around the city, filling out applications. Her resume was a joke, high school diploma and a list of skills like social media management. Most managers took one look and said they'd call, which we both knew was a polite no. But finally, at a small, bustling diner called the Rusty Spoon, a tired-looking woman named Gladys actually interviewed her. No experience? No, ma'am, Chloe said, her voice humble. But I'm a fast learner, and I really, really need this job. Gladys looked at her for a long moment, then at me. All right, trial shift tomorrow at 6 a.m., don't be late. Minimum wage plus tips, you mess up, you're out. On the walk home, I laid down the law. Half your paycheck goes to me for rent and utilities. A quarter goes into a savings account I'm setting up for you. The rest is for absolute necessities, toothpaste, bus fare, things like that. You will do your own laundry. You will learn to cook. And you will never, ever lie about who you are or where you came from again, to anyone. She nodded, tears in her eyes again. I understand. I'll do it. I'll do anything. And Chloe, I said, stopping and turning to face her. Trust isn't a given. It's earned. And right now your account is at 0. It might take years to build a positive balance. Are you prepared for that? She met my gaze, and for the first time I saw something other than fear or entitlement in her eyes. I saw resolve. Yes, I'm ready to try. 3 weeks into her job at the Rusty Spoon, she came home in tears. I quit, she announced, collapsing onto the couch. I can't do it. My heart sank. What happened? This customer, this guy in a suit, he was so rude. I was trying to pour his coffee and I was nervous and I spilled a few drops on the saucer. He called me an idiot. He said, maybe if you'd gone to college instead of working in a dump like this, you know how to hold a coffee pot. And everyone just watched. No one said a thing. I sat down next to her. You want to know how many times that's happened to me, Chloe? Hundreds. I've been yelled at, insulted, grabbed, and humiliated more times than I can count. And you know what I did? I smiled, apologized, and went to the freezer to cry for 2 minutes. Then I went back out and did it again because I had to, because I had someone counting on me, because I had you. She looked at me, a new understanding dawning in her eyes. I'm so sorry, Alina, I never thought about what you went through. No, you didn't. You were protected from it by me. We sat in silence for a while, then she wiped her eyes and stood up. I'm not quitting. I'm going back tomorrow. The change was slow. But it was real. She stopped complaining about her feet hurting. She started taking the bus without grumbling. She sold her designer bags on a consignment app and used the money to buy practical shoes and a warm coat. She stopped posting on Instagram entirely. 6 months in, she came home with a small, worn box. What's this? I asked. Open it. Inside was a high-quality heating pad for my back, which was always sore after shifts. I've been saving my tip money for a month, she said, her voice shy. You're always in pain, and I thought, this might help. I stared at the heating pad, then at her. This girl, who once spent $400 on a pair of sunglasses, had saved her tip money for a month to buy me a practical gift. I burst into tears. It was the first time I'd really cried since that night at the restaurant. A year after she moved in, I came home to a transformed apartment. She'd cleaned, organized, and even made dinner. It was just pasta with jarred sauce, but she'd set the table with a candle and a napkin. On my plate was a note, written on a piece of scrap paper. Thank you for teaching me what love really looks like. I'm going to spend the rest of my life being worthy of your sacrifice. I love you. I found her in the kitchen. Chloe. I hugged her, really hugged her for the first time in years. We stood there holding each other and crying. I'm so proud of you, I whispered. Mom and Dad would be so proud. She sobbed harder at that. "We're going to be okay," I told her, and for the first time I truly believed it. 2 years later, our lives were almost unrecognizable. I'd been promoted to assistant manager at the Glass Rose. More importantly, I'd saved enough to enroll in a paramedic program part-time. It was slow, but I was finally on the path I'd abandoned years ago. Chloe had become Gladys's right-hand woman at the Rusty Spoon. She was now the shift manager, training new staff and handling the books. She was also taking night classes in accounting at the community college. We'd moved into a small but decent 2-bedroom apartment. It was furnished with thrift store finds, but it was clean, warm, and ours. It was built on mutual respect and honest work. On the second anniversary of that horrible night, we were sitting on our balcony with cups of coffee. "I think about that night a lot," Chloe said quietly. "You don't have to." "I do. I called you dirty, Alina. I was so scared of being associated with you that I tried to erase you. But you were the most real person in that room. You were the only one whose love was genuine. Everything I had was fake. Everything you had was real. And I threw it in your face." She looked at me, her eyes clear and steady. "I'm not that person anymore, and if I ever start to slip, you have my permission to knock me back down." I smiled. "I will, but I don't think you will." I looked at her, my sister, my friend. "Look at us, Chloe. We're both becoming who we were always meant to be." I used to think my hands were dirty from years of scrubbing dishes and waiting tables. But I've learned they're not dirty. They're just marked by every dollar I earned for her, marked by every tear I wiped away, marked by every sacrifice I made. My hands built a bridge for my sister to walk back to me, and she did. Family can break you. It can wound you in ways that feel permanent. But if there's even a small crack of willingness on both sides, if there's a choice to put love above pride, then the breaking doesn't have to be the end. It can be the beginning of something new, something stronger. As I headed out for my evening shift, Chloe called out from the kitchen, "Hey, Alina, good luck with your exam tomorrow. You're going to be an amazing paramedic." I grinned. "Thanks, Chloe. Don't forget to balance the books before you go to bed." Her laugh followed me down the stairs. It wasn't the fake, performative laugh I'd heard at that party. It was real. It was ours, and it made all the difference.